is going to be facing a much more difficult opponent here. So I'm not sure if they're going to be able to take it, considering that they are kind of thin in terms of compositions, playing that Red Hunter, whereas Pen and Paper, of course, leading with all of their melee creeps.
It's a breath of fresh air. It's Oxygen on the Discipline Priest, Fresh on the Retribution Paladin, Yosuke on that Hunter, but they're going against an absolute juggernaut here from China. Pen and Paper have looked almost unstoppable.
I was talking to Jellybeans backstage, and he credited Saji as quite possibly the best healer in the tournament. He would like to queue up with him at any time. Let's see if Order can deal with Saji on Mistweaver, Monk, and Pen and Paper. They're gunning straight for the throat, going right after the healer.
Yeah, Fresh on that Retribution Paladin should offer a lot of support for Oxygen. Fresh is actually one of the only Retribution Paladins in this tournament, playing at an exceptionally high level. Oxygen gets stabilized, trading out the Rapture. Now Order looking for crowd control, looking for some damage, but PPCat and Doe, they're looking to gun down Oxygen.
Yeah, it's going to be a race to the finish. Will Fresh and Yask be able to push PPCat and Doe away from their healer? Otherwise, this is going to be quite devastating. Saji actually getting swapped potentially here by Yask. No, PPCat pulling back and eating the freezing trap. Good coordination by Pen and Paper, but they stack for a triple. Doe trinkets to break out of the crowd control so that they can keep up the chase towards Oxygen.
Yeah, Saji manages to stabilize his team. Doe still has the Astral Shift to work with. Oxygen's mana is not looking good. Already down to 50%. We were nowhere close to dampening. He's already traded out the Raptor and the ping suppression. Fresh is going to have to help him with that Blessing of Protection, that Retribution Paladin defensive cooldown at some point in this game.
Oxygen caught into a stun. This could be devastating. Saji crosses it on Fresh. He can't support the team. Oxygen dips low, trades out Barrier, hiding in the safety of this shield to recover through the burst. Hammer of Justice. Yaska needs this freezing trap if he wants to keep his team in the game. He gets it. Saji forced to trinket. Order are finally forcing vital defensive cooldowns and slowly but surely finding a line to victory.
Yeah, there's a full fear onto Saji. No Tremor Totem available as they make a swap over onto PPCat. Life Cocoon was used on Doe, so smartly Order putting the pressure onto PPCat in this matchup, but they're looking to still remain aggressive onto Oxygen. Once again, Rapture comes up. It's going to keep him alive, but if you look at his mana, down to around 5%. I don't know how much longer he can last it.
I mean, mana's not looking good on either side. This match could easily close out at any second. Freezing trap secured. Fear by PPCat stalls the game out for a few more seconds. Oxygen knocks him away, but immediately reconnect. Yask with that tracker's net on Doe, the only peel right now keeping Oxygen alive, but no mana left. Stormbolt connects. Fresh trying to get them off of his healer with just raw pressure, but there's not enough damage to force them away, and Oxygen is likely to fall. There's nothing left in Pen and Paper. Close game one.
Yeah, Pen and Paper able to do what Tempo Storm could not. They take down the Discipline Priest, and they will prevail in game one here against Order. Though, there were definitely signs of life on Order. Mana was very close at the end of that game. Really felt like, honestly, coming into it, I thought Pen and Paper would stomp this one. That was a close game.
This game was too close, if you ask me. I think Pen and Paper, they should have maybe played a different healer here. Maybe Saji on that Resto Druid could have been a little bit better, actually. And the reason why is because as a monk, you have a lot of upfront burst healing, right? But if you get crowd controlled, you don't have those same HOTS ticking while you are in that crowd control to the same level as a Resto Druid. So you're not going to be able to stabilize your teammates while you're sitting in CC. And when they landed that full trap onto Saji on that monk, he had to use his trinket, he had to use his life cocoon, then they landed another crowd control onto Saji, and they barely actually won there, because if Order hadn't gotten feared towards the end of that one, I think they would have killed on that last trap there. So risky strategy from Pen and Paper going after the Discipline Priest, even riskier to play that monk. I would like to see Saji switch up that monk, maybe play his Resto Druid again, try to get that pre-Iron Bark off before he gets trapped, have a little bit more options in terms of kiting as well.
Well, let's talk about that, because Pen and Paper, one of the things we've really commended them on is the fact that they have just stuck to their guns. Every single series, they come in with a strategy, and they've not swapped or deviated from that composition ever. They always just have one thing prepared for each team, and it's been working pretty well for them so far.
Pretty well. I think that's a fair thing to say. Doing exceptionally well in this tournament. The only series that they lost was against the Gosu crew earlier on in the tournament. It honestly felt like they should have won that one as well. It was a very close series that sent them to the lower bracket. This composition, I actually don't mind it. With the Mistweaver Monk, you have a little bit of instant crowd control that can assist your team. I like their strategy going after the Discipline Priest. Discipline Priest, while healing themselves, taxes their mana quite heavily. If they're able to sit back, able to cast out damage to heal their team up, then they can extend the game to longer periods of time and potentially even outmana the Mistweaver Monk. With the strategy, with training down the Priest, it puts them in a very difficult situation where they are limited on time.
Then Fuki approves of the composition coming in from Pen and Paper here. Order, though, they need to find something here, Sid. We watched them in Asia Pacific. They caught us off guard a little bit. We didn't necessarily expect this to be the team that made it all the way here to BlizzCon. They were able to pull off the victory against Unitas earlier. How do you think they exploit this composition from Pen and Paper?
Well, if they want to remove the clock, they need to substitute Oxygen out of Priest and back onto Shaman. I think that is likely to be their best option compositionally, should they not want to veer too far away from the Retribution Paladin path. And I would likely expect to see that, but obviously they face elimination. They want to run the clock, make sure they're making every right decision as far as map pick goes, because Pen and Paper don't have to blind lock the same composition, although they have pretty much the entire tournament picked the same composition to run through every single series, and that's really their strategy. They don't veer off and try and counter. They pick whatever they think will work the most as a well-rounded composition, and again, they will be blind locking in that Mistweaver Monk. Ashamane's Fall does appear to be more of a stall-based map as it's very large, so it's likely that Oxygen will be changing healers here shortly.
Do you think there's merit in the fact, because let's talk of every other team here is thinking, hey, we lose a game, let's swap composition. I think the only one that didn't do that was Tempo Storm. They played one series where they didn't do it, but Pen and Paper, they've been able to focus just purely on the gameplay. They haven't been swapping up their composition. They've been figuring out what works in the game, what doesn't work in the game, and they've been getting better throughout the series. Even against the Gosu crew, they found themselves down, and they were able to pull out something special. Do you think this is a strategy other teams could adopt?
I think it depends on the matchup a little bit, but if you think that the matchup is winnable or if the game was close, there for sure is things that you could have done better in the actual game, in-game adaptations, maybe some target selection that you could change, or just better cooldown management in general. So absolutely, but in some matchups, I think it's just too hard to actually win. So you just have to switch out your composition. And I mean, that's what we even saw in their series against the Gosu crew. They were looking super good against the RPS. They forced the Gosu crew off of that Shadow Priest comp. And then as soon as they did that and they brought in the Outlaw and the Survival, all of a sudden the Gosu crew started picking up the steam.
Yep, and of course Oxygen, like Sid alluded to, bringing out that Restoration Shaman for the slightly longer game here. What do you think the game strategy should be for Order in Game 2?
Same basic strategy, Hammer of Justice into Freezing Trap. Try to nail that crowd control chain as frequently as possible. If that strategy doesn't net you a kill, hope that the Mistweaver runs out of mana faster than your Shaman. But Saji on this Mistweaver has been playing phenomenally. He holds onto that Way of the Crane for dear life and only uses it when he absolutely needs to, which allows him to extend his mana to a position that a lot of other monks can't.
Yep, and it's something that we will be watching, and it's amazing because we've been kind of talking about this top four, the Gosu crew, the two methods, and skill cap, but the only team to really breach or break into that has been Pen and Paper. They had that narrow defeat to Gosu crew. They're looking to make it through to tomorrow's top 6. A win here would be huge for the team.
Yeah, there is no question about it. Pen and Paper looking to tear through this lower bracket. And in this matchup with these compositions, I expect Pen and Paper to switch up their strategy just a little bit. In the last game, it went for Oxygen, went for the healer. Now that he's on a Resto Shaman, I think Fresh is probably a better target for them.
Yeah, basically Pen and Paper are going to have to shift gears here and play for a bit of a slower paced match, likely targeting down the Retribution Paladin, looking for wind shears on Oxygen, Storm Bolts, intimidating shouts. Basically, PBCat's crowd control will be utilized on Oxygen. There's the Storm Bolts early on. They disarm Fresh, denying some initial burst, and really tear in.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on the Fresh early on. Oxygen trades out his Earthen Shield Totem. Doe under fire as well. Astral Shift gets used. Saji has to play catch-up. Good pressure coming in from Order early on.
Fresh on the back foot, full hex secured by Doe. That is going to bank them even more defensive cooldowns. Potentially the Vital Divine Shield if Oxygen isn't careful in this position. Defensive War Stomp as Fresh desperately tries to get away.
Yeah, he manages to find those heals from Oxygen, topping him off. If we look at mana, Oxygen's still a little bit ahead, and Order has that win condition. Normally, the Resto Shaman does a better job on mana than the Mistweaver Monk, so if Order can survive and stall out the game, it could have that as a win condition later on.
Pen and Paper with pressure points on multiple targets, now swapping to Yosk and bursting him down out of nowhere, forcing that aspect of the turtle off the back of a well-timed wind shear, and Pen and Paper are on fire in this series.
Pen and Paper, what an unbelievable team. The pressure that PPCat and Joe are able to put out, very scary. Fresh now getting swapped to, has a Divine Shield available, has to trade it out. Just in an incapacitate during Earthen Shield Totem. What is going on?
And this is the other thing about Saji. He saves that way of the crane and he pushes forward when he knows the target has nothing left to stay alive, adding that little bit of extra damage to tilt the game in his favor. Yosk on the back foot, Stormbolt secured. Will they be able to stay alive? Oxygen drops that Spirit Link Totem. That's the last line of defense for Order here in game number 2. They don't have a significant mana lead. Everything is starting to fall apart for them, and as soon as Saji moves in, it's likely to be over.
Yeah, Yoski getting lower, no defensive cooldowns left. Oxygen trying to keep him stable, throwing out healing wave after healing wave. PPCat and Joe, they know they can close out this game. All they need is one wind shear to pull out massive CDs. Full trap on Saji. He trinkets out, wants to keep his team aggressive. They could end this game at any moment.
Saji gets clotheslined by Fresh when he moved in to try and crowd control Oxygen. Will they be able to nail it? They need the cross. Where's the Stormbolt? Yosk on the run. This is the way of the crane. Saji sat on it for the entire game until Yosk was vulnerable and nails the kill with it. Perfect play from Pen and Paper.
Perfect execution. I hope you're taking notes because this team have been absolutely incredible with the Turbo Cleave. We talked about skill capped. I imagine if skill cap goes up against Pen and Paper, I actually think that would be the next matchup if this team were to win. That could be a potentially very fun Turbo Cleave game, but now Saji, PPCat, and Doe are one game away from securing themselves through to tomorrow's bracket, and these guys look unstoppable.
I mean, I'm never going to say I want to see Saji off with Monk. At the end there, he played so good.
It's a good thing you'd never say that.
Oh, yeah, no, I would never say that I want to see it. Well, the thing is, his Resto Druid is so good as well, so it's like...
It's like two scoops of ice cream there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, his Monk is definitely the blueberry flavor because, you know, I like blueberries. Saji, again and again, finds these opportunities to use his Way of the Crane to force the enemy to react. And when they forced out that bubble on Fresh, I knew the game is over. At this point, they are so far ahead. They got the Earthen Wall Totem. They got the Divine Shield as well. And at that point, incapacitate, Saji moves away. He waits for the red and the Shaman to stack up a bit. Look at that beautiful leg sweep right there. And then, of course, the reason why this is so good is because a Retribution Paladin can remove the stun off of his healer with the Blessing of Protection, with the Hand of Sanctuary, but because he was caught up with the stun at the same time as his healer, he wasn't able to do that. Had Fresh been able to free out his Resto Shaman, maybe Yosk would have survived there, but because of the patience there on that leg sweep, they find themselves 2-0 up.
It's just absolutely incredible. I mean, by the way, we're going to have a conversation afterwards about blueberry ice cream because I do not agree with you. But that does not need to happen now.
Of course you don't. Of course you don't.
But, I mean, looking at this, Pen and Paper, let's not remember, at the start of opening week, we were saying China has not won a single series at BlizzCon for 5 years. And that statistic was completely correct, including the fact that this roster has been the Chinese representative for the last 2 years. They come out of nowhere and they're destroying teams.
Can't sleep on Saji.
Well, I mean, sometimes statistics like that really don't tell the whole story. If we went by those statistics, I mean, Method Orange, they had not won a game at a LAN tournament until this BlizzCon as that team. So Pen and Paper, they have always been contenders. The first team from China to stick together for 2 years in a row. They were incredible last year, although they didn't win a series. This year, they look stronger than ever.
And it just doesn't look like Order have an answer. They're going to swap over Yosuke on the Warrior. That's kind of the last iteration of the compositions we've seen from them that they haven't tried yet. But against this juggernaut Turbo Cleave coming out from Pen and Paper, the Warrior and the Enhancement Shaman, which we often call Turbo because of how fast-paced that damage is, do you give any hopes to Order in this final game, Sid?
I mean, they're desperate at this point. Bringing in Yosk on the Warrior brings them more durability, so Order likely playing for a late game strategy, but which would normally be effective against the Mistweaver Monk, but not a Saji Mistweaver Monk, so I would have maybe rather preferred to see Oxygen even go back on Priest and go all-out aggression, try and punish an early Trinket with a swap to Saji, something along those lines, because trying to stall it out, I just don't think they're going to be able to. Pen and Paper are going to tear them apart.
Yeah, I got to agree with you there, Sid. I think that I want to see the Discipline Priest as well coming out of these guys, because if you play the Discipline Priest and you play a small map, you get those fears, you go for the all-ins, then you can win. The game on Nagrand didn't look too shabby. The problem with the game on Nagrand was that Saji had an easy time staying back and still getting out those heals. Then there's big spaces where Fresh has to move over, land the Hammer of Justice, and then move back to his target. So I think if they play on a small map and they play the hyper-aggressive Hunter Priest, that could potentially be the answer to force Saji off of that Monga at least, and then probably lose to his Wrestler Druid.
Probably lose to something. I'm really excited because I'm looking at the bracket for tomorrow, which, by the way, is shaping up to be absolutely incredible. We still got one more series after this, the Method Orange versus Method Black, so stay tuned for that one. But we could potentially have Saji versus Looney on the BlizzCon stage. These two guys have been hyped up as the Druids, the monks for the tournament, and that would be an absolutely amazing head-to-head if we were to see it. I'm so curious who comes out on top in those melee cleave mirrors, but we do have one more game potentially here, unless Order can come up with an upset. Saji looking to be a king. Doe and PPCat have been fantastic, doing so much damage. They played probably the perfect turbo cleave game, and now they just need one more to secure the series.
Yeah, they are one game away from eliminating Order out of this competition. Order, they're bringing in a new comp. We've seen them run this before, this Retribution Paladin, Warrior Shaman. Going to be difficult though. Pen and Paper, they seem to have all the answers.
At this point, Order are playing scared. They're on match point, one loss away from being sent home. Saji, the unstoppable force on this healer, keeping his team going through basically anything. Will Order be able to stay alive long enough for this attrition fight, or will they ultimately be crushed?
What will Order do in this matchup? Do they go for Doe and PPCat? Do they look for crowd control on Saji? Potentially going on him. Doe taking a lot of pressure very early on. Full Hammer of Justice secured by Fresh. Saji already trading out his Life Cocoon, and they shred through it.
At this point, Saji trading out vital defensive cooldowns to stay in the fight, but the momentum is much more heavily in favor of Order. Yasuke's sustained damage on that Warrior much more effective, and they can likely burn down the mana of Saji. Oxygen can go for some Purge plays, remove that Soothing Mist, and deny Saji's healing, but a Purge play costs a lot of mana, and if you don't have mana, you can't heal your teammates, so it's a risky decision, but it might be a risk they need to take.
Saji always playing that Dome of Mist talent, protecting his vital enveloping mist from the enemy team. So these all-ins from Order going to be difficult. Fresh taking some pressure as well as Yasuke. They want to charge in and continue the damage. Go retreats to the safety of Saji, allowing him to connect a little bit of heals and stabilize. Oxygen, unfortunately, has to chase his team as they push in.
You can tell the tournament pressure is getting to Oxygen. He's burned through three-minute cooldowns in one sitting. Now he's not going to have those to fall back on moving forward. Pressure swinging in favor of Pen and Paper as two members of Order are below half health, and Oxygen doesn't have many options to recover. Dropping that Earthen Wall Totem, Order are pinned down. Fortunately for them, Saji has burned quite a bit of his mana. That's the only thing going in their favor.
Yeah, Saji almost completely tapped on mana. Double Fear coming in from PPCat. A lot of pressure on Fresh. This could be his Divine Shield as he looks to kite away. Incapacitate on Oxygen, and Fresh forced to use that vital 5-minute cooldown Divine Shield to keep himself alive.
Saji looking for that match to go head-to-head against Looney and really decide who the best healer in this tournament is. We are likely to see that here. Pen and Paper just outclassing Order in this series, looking to clean sweep them. Will Fresh be able to hang on? The cooldowns are rotating back in favor of Pen and Paper. There's not much windows of opportunity. Double intimidating shout out by Yasuke. At this point, Order are just flailing to stay alive.
Yeah, but in the meantime, they're using all of their crowd control defensively, and that is not a spot you want to be in. As a cleave setup like this, you need those cooldowns like Intimidating Shout to actually close out the game. And now Saji, he's got to be feeling very confident, caught into a stun. No gets out of the stun. Astral Shift going to be used. Pen and Paper trading out early on. They just want to avoid some of this damage. Fresh looking to get aggressive with his Avenging Wrath as he puts out a lot of pressure on Pen and Paper.
This next wave of the Crane could close the game, but it's going to cost the remainder of Saji's mana. He's rolling across. He's making the moves. This could easily be the end of the match. PPCat, though, heroic leaping away. He doesn't want to throw the game. Double cap totem secured by Doe. So surprised since not see Saji go for the way of the crane. Now he's burned all of his mana. He can't activate it. It's going to be up to his teammates to close the rest of this match. Order finally showing some semblance of life in this series.
Yeah, if Saji does decide to use that way of the crane, that will be the last little bit of mana he has available. Triple Fear coming in from PBCat. Fresh getting lower and lower. Does Oxygen have the healing to keep Fresh alive? Pen and Paper secure the series 3-0.
Pen and Paper will advance to tomorrow's bracket, looking absolutely stellar. This team from China, 3-0 against the Asia Pacific representatives. PBCat, Saji, and Do will play against Skill-Capped EU, another elimination series to look forward to tomorrow. But I do want to give a second to talk about Order. They've had a great tournament. They pick up the victory here for Asia Pacific, and plenty for them to ride home and be proud of.
Absolutely, and I mean, these guys, when we interviewed them as well, said that they were here for the experience. They wanted to learn. They said that when they talked to Unix, which was the other Australian roster that qualified last year, they said that when they got back, you could tell a big difference in how they played. They were much better, much more experienced, and that is, for a lot of these guys, what it's all about. Coming out to BlizzCon and playing against all of the best players in the world, and then coming home with that knowledge, with that experience. And I mean, Order, they had a good run. They had a good run in their region as well, and now they're going to go back home, maybe get a few more comps under their belt, and then hopefully we'll see them again next year. I enjoyed watching their matches.
Yeah, it was really good, and I mean, we've seen it throughout this year, right? Asia Pacific and Latin America, both of the regions growing up and up. Both these teams are basically setting themselves up for success in future years. One of the examples of a region that's slightly further ahead in that chain is China. Here, Pen and Paper, they've been setting themselves up for success for a couple of years now. Now they're really finding it, and they're through to the final day of BlizzCon.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see them play once again and see what they have in store for these other teams. Like we kind of mentioned, these guys, they play lots of different compositions, and they seem to just be hyper-focused on one for each individual team. And if I was a team in this tournament, I would be wondering, do they have my number? Because they seem to be very scary.
They just seem to come into it with one number for everyone, but the question is it the right number?
Yeah.
Go through it wasn't quite. It couldn't have been much closer. Skill-Capped EU will be watching out tomorrow, but we've got one more series here today to round out the day. And I would have to potentially argue this will be the best series of today. This could well be a repeat of the grand finals. It's Method Black against Method Orange. Do not go anywhere. It will be the decider for the grand final after this.